On this episode, I cel shade everything so I can last forever. Meanwhile, Robbie's photorealism ages poorly.
I'm not outdated. I'm still relevant.
Welcome to Save Every Universe. My name is Alec Garcia.
My name is Robbie.
Yeah, that wasn't weird at all. Good
It's
job.
not weird, guys. It's not weird.
So today we are going to be talking in light of the amazing, incredible news that everyone is very excited about the announcement of Borderlands 3. Kind of. And it got us thinking about, do you have something to object?
Yeah, what's Borderlands?
Dude, you son of a bitch. It's the loot shooter that we've all been waiting for, Robbie.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So they announced Borderlands 3. I don't know. There was nothing there. It was like a teaser trailer that was like way too long. I'm not griping. I'm very excited for it. But like that trailer was like, did you watch it?
It just came out. I've actually been in I've been in court, so I haven't had the chance to watch it.
There's like all these like little figure things, like, and it just the camera pans around, and it's a teaser, but it's
Who cares?
But it's like really long for them showing kind of. I don't know, maybe if you're a hardcore fan, you like got all this stuff out of it. I'm sure there's videos out there that's like trailer breakdown.
The 20 things you missed.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, there was another game. We've been talking about this for a while, actually, about like cel shading and stuff. And there was another game by the BioShock devs that's announced to come out later in November called Void Bastards. That I was like, a cel shaded shooter. That's so cool. So we got talking about art styles. What have you on the docket today, Robbie?
I haven't seen the trailer for either of those.
Okay.
But I love cel shading in games.
Yeah.
I've played a fair bit of them.
Yes.
I went through Wikipedia's like top 100 list and was like, oh, there's so many great games in here.
Yeah.
And I like the Borderlands. I did not like the pre-sequel.
I didn't play that one. I played 1 and 2 though.
I thought it sucked, and my brother and I tried to play through the pre-sequel together. And you would think like that type of we've talked about it. You can play any shitty game with a friend, and we didn't beat it.
Really?
We were just like, this sucks. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as fun.
Yeah.
But I loved Borderlands 1 and 2. I'm really excited for 3.
Do you think 3 is going to be a loot shooter, like an online service game, or do you think it's just going to be a pure?
I hope it's just a pure sequel.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I don't want another loot shooter.
Yeah.
I'm all loot shot out.
If it's as good as the Division 2, I would be okay with it.
Nothing in your mind will be as good as the Division 2.
Not right now, dude. I'm hooked. I am so hooked.
So this is actually pretty cool because we were already wanting to talk about cel shading.
Yeah.
And at the time of this recording,
it's been on our list for a while, and we never quite fit in like when and where to talk about it. But
yeah, we're like, let's just do it, and then they announced Borderlands 3. So it does work out.
Yeah. So for first of all, I hadn't ever really thought about like breaking down like what are the different styles of art in games, right? But I was thinking about it, and you remember the back of the Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was like the most photorealistic game we've ever seen, right? So it kind of seems like those are the two camps, right? Like photorealism and then abstract, cartoony, like abstraction, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Right. And cel shading is kind of like the far end of that spectrum of cartooniness and making I guess cel shading, what it is the taking 3-dimensional models and making them appear flat, even though they're in a 3-dimensional world.
It's like the flattening of the 3-dimensional.
So it kind of is like the really far extreme of that like abstraction. How far away from photorealism can you get?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this in a while because cel shading's come such a long way.
Yeah.
But in the early days, I remember the tension a lot.
Yeah.
I remember talking to people who were like, "Oh, it's just a cartoon, and this is bullshit." And
yeah. Like when people found out about Wind Waker, Zelda Wind Waker on the GameCube, like people flipped out. Like, "Oh, I didn't want this
a lot of opposition.
Little kitty bullshit." And it was one of the best Zeldas ever.
I thought so.
Yeah.
It's still one of my top 3. I like Breath of the Wild a lot, but cel shaded.
Yeah, that's true.
Breath of the Wild is
not as like cartoony,
well, it's just, but it's still cel shaded. Right. It's not like Ocarina of Time.
That's true. Yeah.
I remember it's one of those funny things where you look back on those old 3D games, right? And it's like the graphics are so fucking realistic, right?
Yeah.
And I don't need this cel shaded cartoon bullshit. Not when I have this living, real image, right? So that tension has always existed. It just doesn't hold up quite as well.
Yeah. So do you? Obviously, like, I don't think one is better than the other, right? And obviously there was a period in the industry where, like, it was all about, like, how much power can we get out of this console to make these graphics look this realistic or whatever. where that was the dominant thing of the industry, but I don't think one is better than the other. Like, what do you think the visual, whether it's photorealistic or whether it's like abstract or cel shaded or whatever, what do you think it adds to a game? Do you think it?
Well, okay, let's use Wind Waker as an example. So Wind Waker was one of my favorite Zeldas. A lot of people critiqued it for being too cartoony and too childish, and that photorealism was like grittier and darker, right? But if you play all of Wind Waker, I thought like that Ganondorf was pretty dark, and there were some really great scenes that were kind of dark and scary and gloomy, stuff with ghosts and the way that the mist and smoke could react in cel shading was more could even be creepier in some ways.
I think that's a good point. I don't think the quote cartoony style is like automatically defaults to it's a little kiddish, right?
Initially that was the critique. I think
that was the assumption, which is wrong. I think
I agree, and I think Wind Waker did such a great job of proving like how much depth there could be to that art style, especially because in the early days there was kind of well, think of like Jet Set Radio, which is the first one, or it's the first example I know of.
Yeah.
It was like a more upbeat teenage graffiti. It was blending like the hip hop culture.
It was like grind on your rollerblades and spray paint things. And
stuff, and it was like it had all this like hip hop music and all this crazy stuff, right? And it was like this bright teenage. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't dark and gritty.
Yeah.
It wasn't really childish.
Yeah.
It was. Well, it kind of was, I guess. It was,
but in that way, like it wasn't just like let's do this cel shaded like an arbitrary choice. It fit very well with like the graffiti aspect of it, and like the art style that they made the game in fit like the art style that you were using in the game itself. Right. Yeah.
And then if you start thinking about games like in the early days, like 13, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a cartoon. It was a pretty dark game.
No, you could like get a crossbow or like throwing knives and stuff and like hit someone in the eye.
Yeah.
And it was really cool, and it would like go to like comic book panels and like show you like killing that person.
That was really cool.
It was such a good game, man. And they left it on a cliffhanger. I'm still to this day I'm bummed that they didn't do another one.
Wasn't it it was David Duchovny? Was the
voice, I think so.
The main guy?
Yeah.
And so to answer, like, to get to what you were saying, like, it kind of depends on the story you want to tell. Right? In 13, what they did is they were closer to more like a dark comic book.
Which I think, I didn't know this when I played it. I just loved the game and played it over and over, but it was based on a comic book series. I didn't know that.
Right. And now Telltale has made a career of that. Right. And we can get into that. But, like, I think there is no one is better than the other in the sense that, like, it's what story do you want to tell? I love the way Wind Waker did it. I love the way Breath of the Wild did it.
Yeah.
I feel like if you think about like Twilight Princess, where it wasn't like cel shaded, though I think there probably was some cel shading, especially in the Twilight areas.
Yeah.
But it was more washed out. It had like the Twilight tones, the dusky tones.
Right.
It wasn't all bright and colorful.
Yeah.
But that was the story they were telling, right? The world was already kind of fallen and dark and all this stuff.
Yeah, so in that way, I do think it's not just like an arbitrary choice, and it's not just a skin you lay over something. I think it does add, it does and can add real dimension that complements the themes and the story and the action and all the other things. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I think in the early days there was some like overabundance of cel shading.
Yeah.
It was like a cheap and easy way to cover up your shitty rendering, maybe, or it was like a. But if you look at the list of like all the cel shaded games,
I think that came from the camp though. That was like, how realistic can we make it? Do we have like god rays coming through the trees or whatever?
Right.
And are the shadows rich? And like it's just a totally different thing. It's not one's better than the other or one's lazy. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there were probably examples of abuse.
Right.
But the games that did it well, like Wind Waker or Okami, I didn't play it, but
I didn't.
That's another famous one.
Yeah.
That, like did cel shading in the early days.
Right.
Like those games did it so well and told such amazing stories by using cel shading that I think it's appropriate for them to do that.
And have you played Wind Waker recently?
I have actually.
Yeah.
I have it on my Wii U.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's aged a day.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I wanted to get to is I think they were talking about it in the context of like retro games and that kind of thing, but they were saying that like things that are not photorealistic tend to age much better, and I think that that is one of those advantages of doing cel shading or something more on the scale of like toward abstraction and not realism is that they age better. They really do. You know.
Have you seen? So one of the things I've had about like the PS1 Classic and stuff, is those games are from that era of like 3D, trying to be realistic. And
they were trying to be like, even when the game that they could have made out of that same idea, like maybe would have been better if they would have used a simplified art style. But everyone was like 3D shadows, explosions, and they ended up being these blocky, weird, shitty.
I mean, they were fun.
Yeah.
At the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Warhawk, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. It was kind of like in that era.
I don't really want to go back and play Siphon Filter, though.
No,
it looks like crap. I got over it for Final Fantasy VII, right?
Yeah.
And that's an interesting one. Like, that's re-coming out. But I think there's other things that kind of help you get past that, right?
Yeah.
But with games that, like, relied on the action and relied on the cutting-edge graphics...
that Final Fantasy VII was almost blocky to the point of abstraction, to where you can go back and play it, and it almost just feels like...
I think it is now.
Yeah.
I think when you go, if you look at it now, it's like, well, that's the style.
Yeah.
But at the time...
But actually, so there's been enough time now where people are like looking back. I saw a video where this guy was talking about different animation styles, and he was like, I would love to see a modern dev like go and do that blocky style from that PS1 era, and then like intentionally make it look like that, but for a modern indie game. I was like, that is actually cool. Kind of a cool idea.
It could be done.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you just did it so intentionally, like 7.
Yeah.
Where Cloud's arm is just a block and like...
Yeah.
But if you remember, 7's got like static backgrounds that are like photographs or whatever, right?
Or like hand-drawn or something.
Hand-drawn. It seems like they're hand-drawn, They're not photographs. Yeah. I don't think Midgar's a real place, But if you did that with like rich HD backgrounds, and you could do it.
Yeah. It's actually a good idea. When I heard him say that, I was like, that's stupid. And then I thought about it for a second. I was like, no, I want to play that.
If the gameplay was good, because that's what... So you're walking around and it looks blocky, but when you get into the fights, and you get into the... Well, not the cutscenes. The cutscenes have aged. They're still kind of endearing, but
they're not...
They were so well done at the time that they're okay.
Yeah.
But the fights themselves are still more like a traditional... RPG.
Yes.
They just are a little fancied up. So I think that's why games like 7 get away with it.
Right.
And games like maybe Siphon Filter. Unless you're a huge Siphon Filter fan.
Well, Siphon Filter was like this gritty, realistic thing for its time. Like, they made a big deal out of like real interruptions on your mission. Like, you'd be going to a gym, like, wait, there's hostages at the tennis court. And you had to like...
Just like real life.
Yeah.
So what's cool about the aging is like... So 8-bit, 16-bit, whatever those games...
Yeah.
They're kind of timeless now, right?
Right.
Like games like Celeste are mimicking them or whatever. But now cell shading is also kind of immune to the aging, right? Because, I mean, Breath of the Wild killed it.
Yeah.
Telltale Games, well, they
killed
themselves.
Yeah.
They killed themselves. But their games were fine.
Yeah.
Games like Wolves Among Us and...
Well, and the dark subject matter, too. Going back to that real quick, of like the cartoony style doesn't have to mean cartoony content. Like the Walking Dead is extremely dark, and obviously not just the gore of it, but like the subject matter of the relationships and all that stuff is heavy. Yeah, and it's done really well through cell shading.
It is done really well. Yeah. It is. I know that they're pretty much folded up shop now, Telltale Games, but they had
a good run though. There was some good stuff. They put out some good stuff.
I feel like they got away with some things that I can't believe they got away with either, like making that style of game.
Yes.
In cell shading, I mean, so it makes sense for games like Wolf Among Us or Wolves Among Us.
I think it's the Wolf
Among Us.
Yeah, I think.
Or like Batman, right? That makes sense. It's already a comic book character. Yeah. But Walking Dead?
Yeah.
Okay, now it's based on a graphic novel. I get that. Yeah. We've read a lot of them, right? But it's not like the Telltale style mimics the graphic novel at all. They don't look anything alike, right?
Yeah.
And yet they still got away with it.
But I think, like 13 coming over to a video game, like that, it feels comic booky cell shading a little bit, no matter what. So maybe that's why they got away with it. Yeah, even though it's not like this carbon copy over of like, wow, this looks just like the comic.
Right. Yeah. And I know anime games have gotten away with it too. Like, what's that? No More Heroes or
No More Heroes. Persona, and I guess there was
are the Persona games kind of like that too?
I don't know. I heard what Persona games were about, and I actively avoided.
You did a character intro with one of them.
Anyway, there was a game called Agent Number 7.
Oh,
which was cell shaded, and I guess that was the precursor to No More Heroes. Yeah. But in those Japanese games, a lot of them do tend to use it. I guess Naruto is there's like a fighting game, something.
Well, so
it's like a 3-dimensional fighting game with cell shaded style.
Is the anime?
Yeah.
They made a fighting game out of it, and Naruto a lot of the Dragon Ball. Like Fighter Z, Dragon Ball Fighter, or Fighters.
Yeah.
It's Fighter Z, right?
Fighter Z, I think.
I have it. I don't know.
You went to the midnight release.
I did. It looks amazing, too. It looks so good. Like, I've been the boys have been watching Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
I've been watching it with them. I don't mean to make it sound like I'm watching it with them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just And then when you go play the game, like the game looks better. It looks so good.
Yeah.
Like they mimic that comic style, but like the way they do like people charging in and knocking people out of the arena, and just it makes
it like
good.
a playable comic book.
It does,
or a playable
or manga or whatever, anime.
Yeah. Transformers Devastation was one of the other ones too. It was like one of the best Transformer games ever, right? But that was cel shaded as well. I would like to see though, as we move toward closing up, I just want to say I would like to see more cel shading that isn't like directly based on comic books or that kind of thing. I think it is a really cool art style in its own right. I'm excited for Borderlands 3. And they really what did you say that they made
They've made their own genre?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? What did you... So Telltale created... It's not just a point and click. It's not just a storytelling...
Yeah.
It's like the aesthetic of the cel shading is necessary to that type of game.
Yeah.
Like it's fundamental. If you took it out, it would feel weird now.
Yeah. Like Borderlands couldn't go photorealistic all of a sudden kind of thing. Yeah.
And like you can't... even games like Detroit... They don't feel like they're in the same genre as a Telltale game, even though they are.
Yes, that's true.
But they feel so different. Yeah. And that art aesthetic, like that's a great example, like Detroit being like photorealism. Like, it's very realistic. Yeah. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
And they do the face capture, really detailed stuff. I feel like you have to have that if that's the type of game you're making. And even Breath of the Wild, because of that aesthetic, it doesn't feel like Skyrim to me. It doesn't feel like any other open world sandbox game. Those are games that I've traditionally not played. Right. But there was something about the aesthetic that creates it like its own subgenre that makes me want to play it.
Interesting. Yeah. That just made me think of Borderlands, because I always thought of it as a shooter, right? But now in the context of like loot shooters, people are talking like Borderlands really is its own thing.
It's its own thing.
Yeah.
It's always bugged me that people have compared it so much to... Yeah. Because it's... That art style and that aesthetic changes so much, right? The way that the loot comes out of people and blows up and... Like, that's really important.
Are there any... There is no other, like, first-person shooter loot game that is, like, an offline deal, right? Is it the only one? Does it really stand alone as the game that it is? That it's like Destiny but offline,
right? Or like Diablo, or something. Yeah,
it really is a unique genre thing within its. Right. Yeah,
people say that it's like a loot shooter, but it's not in the way we think of loot shooters.
So
now.
It almost would be a big mistake for them. This is like a tangent, but you got my brain working here. Like it really would be a mistake, I think, for them to do like an online service game, because they dominate sort of. They stand alone. They are their own thing.
The way they do their games gives them freedom, right? Yeah. They don't have to worry about tweaking loot drops, and they don't have to worry about class balancing nearly as much.
They could add DLC and other like co-op stuff like down the road and all that kind of stuff. But
right, and I think they tend to have co-op.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people try and lump them in with Destiny.
Yeah,
but it's still pretty different.
Interesting.
I think.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what direction
online
they go
co-op.
with that. Yeah.
But still keeping the rest of it, which Borderlands 2 had online co-op.
Yeah.
You could jump in with your friends.
That's true.
But
it wasn't like a Destiny type universe or whatever. No. So I'm really curious to see what direction they go with that, because they've done the Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel. They can't just come do the same thing, I don't think.
Why not?
I guess they could.
If it's just a fun game and a fun story.
New, big, different world, but it's
Borderlands 2 just did what Borderlands 1 did, but expanded on it.
Yeah.
Why not?
You think they'll do that? They'll bring a new installment with new world, fresh loot?
I hope so. That's what I'd like to see, even though pre-sequels sucked at it.
Yeah.
They didn't do it well.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Huh.
So...
Maybe now I'm going to have to go buy the Handsome Collection and, like...
Try it out.
Analyze Borderlands. It's been a while since I played them.
Borderlands 2 just... I'm not saying it was a knockoff. It was great, and it was better than Borderlands 1.
Yes.
But it was still the same game.
Yeah.
The co-op was more intuitive and stuff, but it was... You could do online co-op in Borderlands 1.
Yeah.
It didn't reinvent,
Interesting.
But the story was better, the game was bigger.
Yeah.
The classes had cooler abilities.
That's true. Yeah, the classes. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to go play that now. Thank you for listening to Save Every Universe. If you enjoyed this episode, please share us with a friend. And genuinely, truly, I would like to know what you think the new Borderlands game is going to be. Are they going to bring anything new to the table? Or is it going to be sort of current gen, Borderlands 2 on current gen tech? Is it, or, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, send us an email, saveeveryuniverse@gmail.com.
That's right. You may have noticed we stopped doing our character intros for the last couple episodes. Please give us some feedback. Do you miss them? Do you not care? Did you even notice? We'd love to hear from you. You can email us. You can also reach out to us. If you're one of our patrons, you're added to our Discord channel. So you can go about contacting us that way as well. Indeed. We'd love to hear from you. You know, we're just lonely.
Sitting around,
just waiting by the phone, hoping you call.
Robbie's skipping his court date from here to next week just to wait around for your emails.
An innocent person went to jail because you didn't call me.